do the Ielts and take Ielts, and hopefully like so we can score like a high score in Ielts. At the beginning of this presentation, I'm going to give you the outline, what the things that we're going to cover while we go in this presentation. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is that why Ielts, why we're going to choose Ielts, and why we take Ielts. The second thing is going to be types of the test. Then we're going to move to talk about the test structure and how it is different from one type to another. And finally, we're going to talk about some key information of the test and the thing that will help us understand the test better so we can like pass it easier. So to get started, first we're going to talk about why Ielts. Why people take Ielts? Like actually people take Ielts for three main reasons. The first one is for professional jobs. Like most of the people, for example, let's say they're working in schools as teachers. So the school administration, they always ask them to provide Ielts, like to prove that they're capable of speaking English, whether fluently, whether less than that, whether like at least to some degree. So they need just to know or to have a proof of their ability to speak the language, or at least to understand the language. That's the first thing. The other thing is like for higher studies, like for example, many universities, especially for example, advanced or like the high-ranked universities, they asked for Ielts as a proof for the ability of the language, because most of these universities teach in English and people need to be able to understand the language. That's why they ask them to provide the Ielts certificate. We have one more reason, which is immigration. A lot of people, for example, they travel to Canada, they travel to the US, and Ielts is a requirement in this case. So that's why people usually do Ielts. And I think like in most of your cases, it's going to be for professional jobs, like whether in schools or at some organizations or whatever. Now, moving to talk about the types of Ielts, here we have like more than one type of the test. The test actually is divided into two parts, mainly. One of them is general and one of them is academic. When it comes to the general test, here, like it is most of the time required, for example, for immigration. However, the academic test is required for higher studies or for professional work visas. For example, even like, for example, when you want to travel, sometimes they ask you to provide the academic test. For teachers, like for teachers who are not teaching English, like for example, if the teacher is teaching Arabic or if they're like teaching Islamic, usually they do the general test. They don't go for the academic because the general test is easier. That's what we're going to talk about later. But it is easier, and that's why usually people usually do the general test. So for let's say Arabic teachers or Islamic teachers, they ask them to get 5 band. And for teachers, for example, who teaches Arabic as Arabic B, which means Arabic for non-Arab people, they ask them to provide Ielts 6 band. And that's something not impossible to do. It's something not easy and not impossible at the same time. It is manageable. Now, let's talk more about the test structure, how the test is like divided and how it is structured. So first of all, it is divided into 4 parts, starting with listening. And this is the first thing that you're gonna come across when you are doing the test. So you're gonna get the listening paper. Then you have the reading. After that, writing. And these are together. And sometimes the speaking comes after them. All the time the speaking comes after them. Sometimes it's going to be at the same day, and sometimes it is the day after, which means that, for example, let's say today is Monday. Today I have a test, so I do listening, reading, writing at the same day, Sometimes I do speaking at the same day, like after, for example, 2 hours, or sometimes I do it the next day, like on Tuesday. That's the test structure. That's how it goes. That's like the order of the skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. But you need to keep something in mind, which is the fact that the listening is the same for academic and for general. However, when it comes to reading and writing, they are different. Here where like the difference starts. In reading and writing, they are different between general and academic. But speaking and listening are gonna be the same. There are no differences between them. When we go to the timing, the listening test is going to last for 40 minutes. I'm going to talk in more details about this. And the reading is going to be 1 hour, exactly 60 minutes. The same is for writing. And the speaking test actually varies. Sometimes, for example, it takes 15 minutes. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes. It differs. Like it's based on luck most of the time. And based on how much you are talking or how much information you are providing to the examiner, to the person who is doing the exam with you. Now, let me provide you with some key information about the test also. Like now we talked about the structure of the test, the types of the test, but you still need some information that you need to keep in mind when you need to do the Ielts or when you need to take the Ielts. The first thing to keep in mind, which is again the timing, as I said, in total it's going to be 2 hours 40 minutes. That's like for 40 minutes for listening, 1 hour for writing, and 1 hour for reading, and like almost 15 minutes for speaking. So that's for the timing. Also, you need to keep in mind that the score is to be awarded per subtest, which means, for example, the test is out of 9. So like the final mark you're gonna get, for example, is out of 9, from 1 to 9. So in each skill, for example, they're gonna ask, for example, in the listening, how much did I get? Let's say 7.5. Then in reading, let's say 6. In writing, I got 7. And in speaking, I got 7, or let's say 7.5. How do they calculate mark? They just like calculate all of these together and they divide them to 4. So that, and then they get to the total. So it's like 7.5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 7.5 divided by 4. Then they get to the mark that they are asking for, or the mark that you are going to get. So that's how it is divided. Now, the next thing to keep in mind is that, as I said, it is band scores ranges between 1 to 9, which means your Ielts mark is going to be between 1 to 9. And here, actually, this is related to the next point, which is that there is no passing or failing mark. So, for example, whatever you do, they are not going to tell you you passed or you didn't pass. You passed the test or you failed the test. No. They're just going to provide you with a number. For example, if you did very, very bad, God forbid, let's say you're going to get a 3. But if you get really, really well, you're going to get an 8 or 8.5. So actually, there is no passing or failing mark. That's something relevant from one person to another. But if we need to talk about the last point, which is the test is valid for 2 years, that's actually most likely for students. But for teachers, schools don't really care whether, for example, you have done the Ielts 3 years or 4 years ago. They don't really care that much about that. But some of them, they do, so that you need to redo the test again. So now these are the bands. That's the marks of the Ielts. Like, for example, if you score 1, this means that you are not non-user, which means you don't know how to use the language. If you get a 5, it means you are a modest user, which means like you're gonna be in between. It's neither very good nor very bad user. And let's say if you get an 8 band, it means you're a very good user. And definitely we have in betweens, which means like we have 6, we have 6.5, you have 7, we have 7.5, and so on and so forth. That's how they are divided. So basically, that's all about the exam itself. Now, let's talk about each skill in more details. So if we go to the listening, in the listening, as we said, it is going to be for 60 minutes. And actually, it is divided to 4 parts. We have section 1, section 2, section 3, and section 4. By the way, like section 1 is the easiest. Section 2 and 3, 4, they like start to get a bit harder than the section before. Here, like let's say you have a conversation between 2 people, and usually these two people, they're talking about something social, which means, like, for example, they are talking about a famous actor, they're talking about football, they're talking about something in general. In the second section, here it is called a monologue, which means we have one person only. One person is talking only, and he is talking also about something general, but it is a bit more difficult than section 1. In section 3, here it is a conversation. It is similar to section 1, but the difference is that here it is between 2 people up to 4 people. So for example, you may have like a conversation between 2 students and their doctor at the university, or 2 students and their teacher at school, or and for example, it might be between 2 teachers, the principal, and a teacher. So 4 people in this case. And most of the time here, they are talking about something educational, which means it's related in one way or another to schools, to universities, to assignments, and like that. In the 4th section, which is the hardest one, here also again it is a monologue, which means it's one person talking about something, and this something most of the time it is academic, which means he might be, for example, talking about history, he might be talking about geography, he might be talking about languages. So it's different from one test to another, but most of the time they all share the same idea, which is the academic subject. So it's different. Actually, for example, if you do the test today or tomorrow, you may have you're definitely gonna have different listening audios to complete. Now, the timing of the test, as I said, it's gonna be 60 minutes, and sorry, it's 40 minutes. It's misspelled here. It is 40 minutes. It's my bad. It's 40 minutes. 15 minutes out of these 40 minutes are going to be for explanations, which means, for example, they gave you the paper and they want to start the listening. Before, they start the audio, let's say in the center, but you're gonna have let's say 1 minute before the audio starts so that you can prepare yourself. Or let's say, for example, between section 1 and section 2, you may have 1 minute. Between section 3 and section 4, it's the same. So almost 15 minutes are gonna be wasted just for organization and explanations. The rest of the other 35 minutes will take the actual recording along with pauses. What does that mean? For example, here you are going to be listening for almost 35 minutes in total. That's the total number of minutes you're gonna be listening. At the end, you're gonna have 10 minutes, okay? These 10 minutes are to transfer all your answers onto the answer sheet, which means while you are listening, let's say you have the paper in front of you, you have, let's say, gaps, you have missing words, you have whatever it is, you're going to be answering on the paper itself. But after the listening finishes, you are going to have another sheet of paper or another sheet, so you can transfer your answers, so you can move your answers from sheet A to sheet B. And that's because sheet A is not going to be corrected. They are just going to take sheet B from you, and that's the paper that they care about. Now, the sections are divided as follows. Usually, the first section is going to be 4 to 7 minutes. And it's going to have 3 sets of questions. And by 3 sets of questions, I mean 3 groups of questions, which means sometimes, for example, you're going to have questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 the same, and the questions 6, 7, 8, 9 the same, because the number of the questions here is going to be 40. You're going to have 40 questions, and they are going to be divided almost as follows, like this. So 4 to 7 minutes, 5 to 7, 5 to 8, and 7 to 9. The last one is the longest as well, because it is the hardest. And there is something that you really need to keep in mind, which is that you are going to listen once, only once. You're not gonna be able to repeat the audio. You will listen one time only. You're gonna have actually different types of tasks or different types of questions that you need to complete. Like, for example, note completion. For example, you have a note and they say something and you need to complete it. You may have, for example, multiple choice questions. You may have a map, for example, and you need to find the places on the map, and like this. Actually, we will talk about this like in more depth, like when we take the course. Now, when it comes to reading, in the reading test, it is going also to be 1 hour, and it comes directly after the listening test. So like once you finish the listening test, they take the paper and they give you another paper for the reading. Here, you are not going to get any extra time to transfer your answers. This means you will have 1 paper only, which means you are going to answer immediately. So after the 1 hour finishes, they're not going to give you not even a minute to transfer your answers. That's why you need to follow like some strategies that we're going to provide you with to overcome this problem. Like, because timing in Ielts is the most difficult thing. It's not a test, but timing or time management. So you need to be aware of some techniques that will help you overcome the problem. Then, as like it's similar to the same as the listening test, you're going to have 40 questions in total, but these 30 questions are going to be divided to 3 reading parts. We will talk about this. So you're going to get 1 mark for each question. So almost you can say that the mark is out of 40. So each question, you're going to get 1 mark for it. But if you, let's say you made a mistake, you're not going to lose any marks. So it's just like you're going to get a 0 for this question only. It's not going to affect the overall mark. Also, you can write, take notes, draw, do whatever you want in the reading question paper. So when you have the question, you can do whatever you want on it, because actually they're not going to take this paper from you. They're just going to take the answer sheet. Some people ask whether, for example, while they're doing the reading test, do they have to write capital letters or not? No, actually, it is not mandatory. If you want, you can write all in capital letters. If you want, you can add all in small case, all small letters. It's not going to make any difference for you. Spelling actually is the most important thing in Ielts, because in the listening, in the reading, and in the writing, whenever you make a spelling mistake, you're going to lose the mark. So like, for example, in listening, you've heard the word and you wrote the word mistakenly, you're going to lose the mark. And the same in reading. Actually, why that? Because in reading, for example, you're just going to copy the word. It is just copy paste. You copy it from the text, you write it down on the paper. So you don't need to make a spelling mistake. It is easy. If you just focus, you're not gonna have this problem. The timing here, as I said, is going to be 60 minutes in total. But again, you need to divide them. Why? Because we're gonna have 3 sections. And section 1 is the easiest. That's why most of the time we try to give it only 15 minutes. Section 2 and section 3 are going to be a bit harder. So we need to give them more time, especially section 3. And as I said earlier, in reading, we have some differences between academic and general text. Like, for example, in academic texts, the text itself, the nature of the text or the kind of the text is going to be taken from books, magazines, and newspaper, like things that you are familiar with, but sometimes they are a bit difficult. But in the general test, it's going to be about every English life or everyday English life, like people talking in general, information, school, work, training services, gym, whatever it is. It's gonna be a bit, actually it's not a bit, it's way much easier than the academic. Also, the number of words differ, like most of the time. For example, when you're taking the academic test, every text is going to be like almost 3,000 words or more, and 2,750 for the general. And the number of sections is going to be the same, 3 sections, 3 sections. But the nature, again, the nature of the texts are different. So these are easier. These you're gonna be familiar more, you are going to be more familiar with. Now, talking about the writing here, actually I didn't provide you with a lot of slides, so you are not overwhelmed, you don't feel afraid, and you don't feel like, oh my God, what is that? No. A lot of people, they say that writing is impossible in Ielts. No, that's wrong, actually. It's not impossible. You just need to know how to crack that, how to go through it, because it's not easy as well, but it is manageable. It can be done. Also, here we said that we have 2 different sections. We have academic and we have a general. So when it comes to the format of the questions, how the questions are made or how they're done, the first task, we have 2 tasks here. The first task here is going to be a bit difficult because you're going to have graphs. You're going to have, for example, statistics, as if you are watching the news, looking at stocks, like, for example, money, about what people are, for example, the number of people who are getting married in some place, the number of cars being purchased, or whatever it is, in 2 different countries, in 3 different countries. So you're going to compare a lot of information together. But in the general, actually, in task 1, you're just going to write a letter. So, for example, you may write a letter for your boss, you may write a letter for the hotel complaining about something, and like that. On the other hand, when it comes to task 2, it's going to be exactly the same. There is no difference. So the only difference is going to be in task 1. But the difficulty level here, it is more difficult, and it's easier in the general. And the time is going to be the same, 60 minutes, 60 minutes. There is no difference. When it comes to the word limit, here you are required to write a specific number of words or more. Like, for example, in the first task, as we said in the academic, you're gonna write 150 words. The same for the letter, 150 words. But in the second essay, which is like the longest essay, you're gonna write 250 words for each. It's either in the academic or in the general test. Actually, that's a lot. Yes, I know that, but it is manageable because you're not gonna just do the test now. You're not going to the test without the preparation, without taking any idea or ideas about how you do that. Moving to the last section, which is the speaking test, which is most of the time either the writing and the listening and reading test with, like, after that with in 2 hours, or it's like in the next day. Here you're gonna have, like, the test is going to be from 10 to 15 and sometimes 20 minutes. What you're going to do is the following. For example, it's gonna be one-to-one interview. So you're gonna enter a room with a person and you are going to chat about different things. Now I'm gonna talk about this in the structure, and the conversation is always recorded. So they always record the conversation in case anything happened. For example, if you want to go to check your mark again or whatever. The speaking test is going to be divided into 3 parts, but here you are not going to have any pauses, which means you don't stop. So once you enter the room, once you start in the conversation or in the speaking, you're going to interview yourself, like introduce yourself. So the examiner is going to ask you, for example, what's your name? Where do you work? Where do you live? Tell me about your childhood. What is your favorite color? Things that are like just about yourself. Then he is going to tell you to take a paper from many papers. He is going to give you like many cards, and you are going to choose one. You are not going to read any of them. You're just going to pick one randomly without knowing what is in this paper. And then he's going to give you 1 minute to prepare. Then you are going to talk about it. After you finish part 2, he's going to ask you questions based on what you said here, based on what you said in topic 2. This is for some people difficult because they feel, oh my God, what if I lie to the examiner? How am I going not to be nervous? How am I going to focus? Actually, it is easy. Like there are some tips or techniques that you can follow, so you can do this easily, and you are feeling while you are feeling comfortable. And last but not least, they are going to like, this is how you are going to be assessed. This is how you are going to get the mark. These are the things that they are going to focus on. They are going to focus on your grammar, how many grammatical mistakes you make, and they're going to focus on your fluency, whether, for example, you are talking without stopping, or you're talking and you keep like making pauses and like making mistakes and like that. They're also going to focus on your pronunciation, which means the way you say the word. For example, if you say the word correctly or if you don't say the word correctly. Vocabulary, which means the number of words you use while like you're talking to the examiner. And the last thing is your body language. Yes, some people they say, oh no, what is the relationship between speaking and body language? Body language is really important because it expresses a lot about your for example, your confidence, and confidence is considered part of the speaking. Your ability to for example, to deliver the idea easily and comprehensively to the other person is part of your ability to speak. Actually, that's all as an introduction, like as orientation to the Ielts. What I want you please to do is the following. Ms. Banan, thanks for her, the organizer of this meeting, has already prepared a link for you on forms. Please just fill this form so you can be able, for example, to register or to be just in touch with us at least. That's the first thing.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad. Thank you, Mr. Abdullah.
Thank you so much. And if you please have any questions, just ask them or send them to Ms. Banan. She'll take care of that and she'll answer all of your questions. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to meeting you later, hopefully. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdullah.
Banan, please, you keep going.
Don't worry, I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much.